The movie begins and we are shown a few engineers who are working in their workshop. Later, they see a few strange creatures coming out of the ground. Upon seeing them, the whole team becomes pretty upset. As their head goes to check, a creature attacks him. That seems really weird and has an awful appearance. Many more monsters eventually show up and begin to kill everyone there one by one. These creatures have attacked the entire planet, and millions of people have been killed as a result. These were strange creatures. They can fly, they could take humans with them after holding them. As a result, the military attempts to stop them, but they become unsuccessful. The entire world has changed since these creatures' attacks. The government creates a new army force that will fight with these creatures. They learn that these dangerous creatures emerge from the holes in the ground that they called gates. The military has blocked these gates and is prepared to fight with these monsters. 15 years later, we observe a girl named Laura working in her lab. In the meantime, a man approaches her. Her colleague asks her to go for lunch. Later, we learn about Laura. She has a son who lives with her, and she lives apart from her husband. Laura's husband visits every week to take their son out. For this reason, this man asks Laura to go out, because she used to be free every week. Because her son wasn't with her at that time, which keeps her busy. She initially denies it but later agrees. On the other side, we see Laura's son, who was at college, with a friend who was quite concerned. When he asks, she responds that there will be a solar eclipse tomorrow. She says, "Do you know when the creatures attacked us, same has happened to us?" He explains to her how many solar eclipses occurred over a 15-year span. Have the creatures arrived? No. There is no reason to be concerned, because nothing like this will ever exist. Later, Laura's kid returns home. His father has arrived there to take him, because he used to take him out once a week. Laura's husband, named David, approaches her. They start fighting over a disagreement. They used to argue with each other, which is what caused them to be separated. Later, the gate which the army has been blocked because of the creature. On the other side, after 15 years, the army notices something peculiar. They notice weird things there and realize that the creatures are on their way. Everyone starts to get scared later. In the meantime, David's uncle phones him and tells him, "You need to get to the address I sent you with your family before the solar eclipse." Meanwhile, Laura and her kid are watching television. It was informed that the fish in the sea have all instantly died. The government claims that the creatures are on their way to our planet again. Laura calls David later because she became quite afraid by this news. She asks him to send his son back to her, but David tells her that he is quite safe with him. But Laura wasn't ready to hear that. He later goes to check on his son in his room but finds him missing. When Laura hears this while on call, she starts to worry a lot. Later, the man who works with Laura approaches her and informs her that I have made arrangements for the residents. We will thus enter a shelter house where we will have access to all of our essential supplies. They are considering the shelter homes because they fear that the creatures could attack their home. Later, she tells her about her son's disappearance, and they track down his phone number to find out where he is. Laura's son has gone to meet his friend. There, they see the birds flying in an odd manner. Everyone starts out running when they see them. Later, after taking his friend, Laura's son flees from that place as well. Everyone was really concerned because they learned that creatures are on their way. Later, David comes there and was going to leave with his son. Laura arrives in the interim along with her friend, her co-worker. Everyone sits in the car, and they all depart from that place. Laura tells them, "My friend is taking us to a shelter house." David argues that we should travel to the address that my uncle had given us. When they arrive at the shelter home, it was already crowded, and the army personnel forbids them from entering. After getting inside the car, they leave from there. They call David's uncle, but he doesn't answer the call. Everyone was upset because there were only 10 minutes left for the solar eclipse. As they reach the highway, they see creatures approaching them. It indicates that creatures have started coming there. Later, David starts to go and Laura's colleague starts to argue with David, telling him, "This is my car, I'll drive it," and they fight a lot. In the midst of this, a creature enters and carries the man who works with Laura away. David becomes quite upset and starts to take his family from this place. We discover that salt can be used to kill these creatures, but no one is aware of their reason to come. Everyone considers them to be the devil, who has come to punish mankind for its sins. Later, David's car eventually runs out of fuel after traveling ahead. David moves to take the nearby car. A man who was scarily sitting there shows David the creature after pointing at him. As David's son exits the car, the creature sees them and attacks them. But in the meantime, the creature brutally kills that man. Everyone becomes terrified as a result. David takes his family to the site of the address his uncle had given him. Nobody opens the door there, and everyone becomes quite frightened, considering that they have no way. Later, they can see several creatures emerging from the mountain. Laura screams after seeing them and tells everyone. In a while, creatures surround them from all sides. Meanwhile, David's uncle opens the door and everyone becomes happy to see each other. David later meets a man, a soldier who claims, "I fought with these creatures 15 years ago, my whole team died except me because I hid in the water of mud and salt." The only thing that can kill these creatures is salty water. Later, they see with a camera that the creatures are still waiting for them and are loudly knocking on the door. The soldier tells everyone to take a rest and I'll look after everyone. But David senses that something is wrong. He suspects him and tells his family, "Nobody will sleep and we'll stay together." After hearing this, the soldier turns his gun toward them. Later, they learn that he has imprisoned David's uncle and came here with fraud. David wonders, "What you're doing, this isn't the time for these things. We all must fight with these creatures." Later, they notice the sound of the creatures has been reduced. Later, a creature holds the neck of the uncle's wife and badly injures her. As a result, the soldier diverts his attention, and David takes the gun and shoots him. Later, the creatures again begin to knock on the door terribly. They decide to flee from there because the creatures were about to enter. Later, the soldier tells them, "I came on the car that is standing near the back door. If you want, we can go there." Later, after taking their weapons, they exit from the back gate. On the way, Laura's son's friend was captured by the creature, but David and his son barely managed to free her. They've reached the car, but they have new trouble that their car wasn't starting. Later, the soldier, after coming out of the car, begins to fix it. Later, they were about to go from there. Meanwhile, David's uncle's wife, after taking the gun from her husband, goes out and was about to kill herself, as she was transforming into a creature after being attacked by the creature. David's uncle takes the gun from his wife, but many creatures come there in a while and take her. When they eventually arrive at the gate where the army force was, as they check, they find no one there. They discover that the creatures have attacked and killed everyone. After a while, creatures have come to this place. Later, David and the soldier are fighting them, but the creatures are encircling them on all sides. The soldier flees the area and locks himself up because he was also getting infected by the attack of the creature. On the other side, David also takes his family in a room and locks him. Later, they learn that creatures are coming here from a pipe that is empty. Later, David makes the decision to go to the water tank, and after mixing the salt into the water, he'll turn it on. Later, he goes from a tunnel, but a creature tries to hold him along the way. David throws salt on him and he dies, and he reaches near the tank. On the other side, David's family has been surrounded by the creature. David's son was trying to stop them after firing guns at them. Meanwhile, they hear David's voice to stop firing and ask to switch on the water valve. David's uncle asks him to take care of his friend and mom, and goes to turn on the valve, but many creatures grab him, and he bravely removes them while holding an axe. He turns on the valve, and as a result, the salty water begins to flow out from the pipe, and all the creatures die after burning. Later, all the creatures begin to return to the gateway because the time of the solar eclipse was ending. Later, Laura's friend was going after taking his mom and friend. Meanwhile, the soldier arrives, who was still alive, shoots Laura's son. He tells them that there will be the rule of creatures, not humans in the world. After saying this, he was about to shoot Laura. David approaches him from behind and attacks. Meanwhile, a giant creature shows up at this very moment, which seems quite dangerous. After attacking the soldier, he eats him. After taking his family, David goes from there. David enters a room and creates a gas by using a chemical that will affect the creature similar to how salt does. Later, the creature enters the room while chasing them. David sprinkles the gas on him. As a result, he erupts and dies there. Later, David's family survived and they go from there. At the end of the film, we're shown that these creatures have caused great destruction to the world. Despite this, humans were ready to fight these creatures. The movie ends with this scene. Thanks.